betrayal. You can't go to Kwekwe, to Precept Farm, whatever it is called, and then still purport to call yourself opposition. That can't happen. It can't happen. Blaise Compaoré of Burkina Faso didn't want. So these dictators, they sing from the same blueprint. They sing from the same copybook. I don't want, but the people want me. I don't want, the people want me. I don't want, the people want me. That playbook is being replayed in Zimbabwe. So the metaphoric bucket of the Zimbabwean treasury has got so many leakages.
Denny J Show.
Zvanga zviri downtown uptown raitidzwe nyaya dzacho dzese narrative ndaichidwe kana mchida kutipisa deep ndaipidwe make you spill a bean if you know what I mean hande
it's time.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's the Denny J Show. Good to be back, and we're out here. Everybody's here. Nash is in the building. Nash, what's happening, my brother?
Good, Denny.
Pilos is also in the building. We're good.
Yo.
Yeah, and the whole entire crew. We're all out here. The last episode we had, Nash. What was your take on that? Was that a good one?
It was very good.
Yeah. We had the legendary Tish Mataz, and I was looking at the comments, and people were talking about. Why didn't you ask him the personal stuff, and why didn't you ask him all the other stuff? People wanted to know more about us, Nash, because that really was about the podcast, and Tish Mataz was just asking a number of things that I think some people wanted to know.
But we're always talking about our personal lives on every show.
Yeah. So if they want to get to know more about us, they must watch more, innit?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because those who really watch us, they know everything.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So yeah, again, so it's good to be back. Excellent episode we have today, Nash. We have a legend in the building.
We've been talking about this one for a very long time.
Yeah.
But we didn't think we'd get him.
Yeah. But when we called him, he was ready, And the good thing about him now is, I didn't even know, as I was researching, I found out he went to the best high school in the country.
No, that is not a good school. Maybe when he went
there we go.
Maybe when he went there, then.
It's actually the first black high school.
We'll ask him if he ever had conflicts when he was there.
All right, okay, we're going to ask him. Ladies and gentlemen, in the studio today, we have a legal legend, a political legend. This guy is one of the original founders of the original MDC, led by Morgan Tsvangirai. His name is Tendai Biti. He went to the best school in the country, where I also went. He was his history is very long. I think we're going to get straight into it. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Tendai Biti. Go on.
Hello, Denny.
How are you doing today?
I'm good.
Yeah. Nasi Friday, so kubasa kurisi.
Very busy.
Very busy, huh?
Yeah, extremely busy.
Yeah, you're one of the best legal minds in the country, and I was just looking at your bio. There's a lot. You went to Goromonzi High School, and you were a deputy head boy, 1985. You were Secretary General of the SRC. All the people who give the regime problems came from the UZ and they were in the SRC. Is that a thing? Is that like when you are at the university, you are like, when we get out there, we're going to challenge the government?
Being a student is a privileged position.
Yeah.
It's a transient position. You have no responsibility.
Right.
You have no children.
Mm-hmm.
You have no mortgage. You have no rent to pay.
Yeah.
So, you can afford to be creative. The word university comes from the Latin word universitas,
Right.
which is universal knowledge. So a university is an incubation of creativity, of growth, of freedom.
Right.
So we expressed ourselves. There was no opposition at the time. So we called ourselves the voice of the voiceless. In my generation, with people like Adam Tambara, Manyaradzi Kwisai, we left our mark.
Yeah.
We left our mark, and we're very proud of that.
Yeah.
We threw stones, we bent cars, we fought with the police. Brilliant.
Yeah. And have you taken this fight further? I mean, like, I know you're a very active politician. And you've had run-ins with the
Yeah,
law.
I think my life, I've got a strong sense of injustice, with a strong sense of right or wrong, very Manichaean, black or white.
Right.
There's no in between. So my legal profession has been an extension of that spirit, that this is right, this is wrong.
Right.
So I have in the courtroom conducted lawfare for human rights, defending the weak and so forth. So I'm very proud of that.
Right.
And I started practicing law in 1990. That year is very significant because that was the year that for the first time after independence, the state of emergency was removed by the government, by President Mugabe. Once the state of emergency was removed, the Bill of Rights became realizable because in a state of emergency, the Bill of Rights is suspended.
Right.
So there's no human rights. People could be detained. There was what was called preventive detention, where you could be detained for months without access to the courts, without access to lawyers. And that is what we saw during the early 80s with people like Lookout Masuku, Ndabaningi, Dumiso Dabengwa being incarcerated under the state of emergency. So when I started practicing, the state of emergency was not there. And one of my first biggest cases was a case called Inre Monumeso, where on the 11th of June, 1992, the workers, the Zimbabwe Congress of Trade Unions, with its President Gibson Sibanda and Secretary General Morgan Tsvangirai, led a demonstration in Zimbabwe. Yeah. And people were arrested for demonstrating without having sought police permission, as was required by Section 6 of the Public Order Security Act. Right. So one of Zimbabwe's first constitutional cases, if not the first constitutional case after the state of emergency had been uplifted, is a case called Inre Monumeso, which successfully challenged Section 6 of the Public Order Security Act, because we basically went to court and said, in a free country, why do I need police permission to go on demonstration?
What year was this?
The case was started in 1992. Right. The Supreme Court judgment was 1994. Yeah. 2 years later. Okay. Then the very same year, I did a case which would interest many people. There was a lawyer called Munyaradzi Kwisai, Enoch Chikweche. So he wanted to register. He had come from the University of Columbia in America, in New York, where he had done his master's. So he wanted to get registered, but he had a dreadlock. Yeah. So the court, through Justice Ziyambi, said, you are too unkempt, you are too dirty, you can't be registered. So I said, no, there's freedom of religion in Zimbabwe, and also that dreadlocks are freedom of expression. Right. And I went to the Supreme Court and I succeeded on the basis that Rastafarianism was a religion and there was freedom for religion. I lost on the point of freedom of expression because I was trying to argue that expression is non-verbal. Not all expression is verbal. So I relied on American flag-burning cases where protesters during the civil rights movement would burn flags. And they went to court and they were protected under the free speech provision of the American Constitution, the First Amendment. But our constitutional court realized that this would be dangerous. Where would you stop? Even gay rights could be termed freedom of expression. So they stopped there. But all the same, the fact that we succeeded in having Rastas being registered as lawyers was at the time very revolutionary. And I'm very proud of that.
Does it follow, like right now, can kids go to school with Rasta?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Look, if the parents are proactive,
Yeah.
they can question that. With freedom, and freedom of, particularly freedom of religion. But I know that there are some cases that have said, look, if you sign on to a certain school with certain beliefs, in particular, Seventh-day Adventist schools, so you then can't, you or your parent can't turn around and say, why wasn't I taught on Sunday, not on Saturday, when you're Seventh-day Adventist? Because you would have signed to a contract that agrees to the standards and values of that school. But otherwise, there's freedom of expression, freedom of movement in our constitution.
Oh, okay, nice. You were also the youngest partner at the law firm Honey and Blackenberg at the age of 26.
I was literally made a partner after 2 years, and some people actually resigned. About 4 people resigned because they thought it was unfair. But the partners were very clear that, look, we see.
Brilliant.
We see, I didn't say that, but we see something in this boy. And I guess my career is vindicated that, because I've had, people think I'm a politician. I'm not. I'm a lawyer. And that's my life. That's where God gave me a talent, and I'm proud of that.
So let me just run through the other things that you've done that I managed to pick up. You were the co-founder of the NCA, that's the National Constitutional Assembly.
Yes, we formed the NCA at the Great Hall of the University of Zimbabwe on the 31st of July 1998. The key speaker there was the late Justice Mchechetere, my late and great friend, Advocate Pearson Nerere, my friend Brian Kagoro, and many others. So we gathered and formed this fantastic thing, because what happened was that the mid-90s was a golden era of NGOs, civic movements, because people were the honeymoon was over with Zanu PF. So people were beginning to question the status quo. So they found expression in civic bodies, civic NGOs. But it became so clear that 2 things were missing. That whatever we do, we have to address the Constitution. And the Constitution was literally being amended every year. Between 1980 and 2013, our Constitution was amended 20 times. 20 times. Yet the American Constitution, which has been there for over hundreds of years, since 1774, has been amended less times than ours that was only in existence in 20 years. So the workers, represented by trade unions, the intelligentsia, the academia, all realized that we needed a new constitution. And so we coalesced around the National Constitutional Assembly, which we then formed on the 31st of January 2008. But if you go back into your history, 10 December 1997, the ZCTU led the first stairway in this country. You could even hear flies flying, mosquitoes flying. It was so successful. And then if you also remember, end of January 2008, there were spontaneous strikes across the country. Particularly in suburbs like Mabuku. Tommy Stole, who was then the editor of the Herald, wrote an editorial which was on the front page of the Herald, which he said, if someone is leading this, then the government should be worried. But if this is spontaneous, then the government should be even more worried, because it means there can be a revolution. They fired him for that at the time. Then, of course, in that same year, the government came up with some very toxic tax increases. People went on the streets again, and in March of 1998, the government had to back down. So those were turbulent times. They were ready for change. Winds of change were blowing in the country.
So you, I know, like, let's go back to your work with the MDC. The MDC was formed in 1999.
Yes, yes.
1999,
Yes.
You are the first Secretary General.
No, I'm not the first Secretary General. I was just a small boy. So what happened behind the scenes? Firstly, the ZCTU organized the National Working People's Convention.
Right.
This was held in Hillside at the Women's Bureau on the 24th, 25th, and 26th of February, 1999. So there were 11 resolutions. Right. The first resolution was on the economy because people were suffering. Then a major resolution was on the land question.
Right.
Yeah, there was a land hunger. So it was before the land reform program. Then, of course, there were other things that they spoke about. But the resolution number 11 was very important. It empowered the Zimbabwe Congress of Trade Unions to consult workers and to come up with a movement. So the ZCTU then went around in stadiums around the country saying to workers, are you ready? And then, of course, Mugabe didn't handle the situation very correctly, in my opinion, because he said, well, if Gibson and Morgan want to form a political party, can let them form it and we'll see each other in the ballot paper. And so behind the scenes, the ZCTU put 10 people, a group of 10 people. There was Morgan himself, there was Gibson, there was the late Remias Makuas, there was Sekai Holland, there was Dr. Reggie Machaba Hove, there was a man we called Rick Flair, Nicholas Mzengerere, he's late. There were 10 of us. I was the youngest, and we were then saying what needs to be done. So logistical things, constitutions, etc. So we took comparative constitutions of the ANC and other bodies and so forth, and started cobbling up, a constitution. Then messaging, what are we standing for? And the overwhelming thing was that we are standing for change. So when the party eventually was launched at Rufaro Stadium on the 11th of September 1999, a lot of work had gone behind doors through the group of 10. We used to meet at some secret venue on the outskirts of Harare, and I've got some pictures with Morgan Tsvangirai with long hair. Used to put on belly bottom, those flared trousers like Otis Redding. Yeah, very funny trousers. Yeah, I bata banaba so like Oliver Mtukudzi.
Yeah, I love Mama Jaiva now.
Na Oliver Mtukudzi. May you so rest in peace. I bata banaba. Yeah, and Morgan Tsvangirai used to dress like that, and he had long hair. And I used to look at him and say, yeah. So that was what went behind the scenes. I'm writing a book, so this will be in there.
Yeah, because when I was researching you, it was saying that you were the Secretary General, the first one. So
No. Welshman Ngube
was the first.
Welshman Ngube was because remember we went to our congress at the Chitungwi's Aquatic Complex on the 24th, 25th, and 26th of January 2000.
Yeah.
We adopted a constitution. It was a very close election between Welsh and Gift Chimanikire.
Right.
Yeah, but Welsh won, so Welsh became the first Secretary General.
Okay, and then when did you become Secretary General? Because
I became Secretary General in the Congress that was held in March of 2006 at the City Sports Center. After the first MDC split of 2005.
Okay. I think we might as well get into that split. That split of 2005 was orchestrated by Welshman. Is it Welshman Ngube caused that split?
I think what caused the split, splits in the opposition are not ideological splits. They are basically lack of communication. So failure to communicate then becomes a political problem. So the failure to communicate was around the proposed introduction of the Senate in Zimbabwe.
Okay.
So there were different views. We actually took a vote on the 12th of October 2005, and those who wanted the Senate were actually in the majority. I was against the Senate, but those who wanted the Senate were actually in the majority. So democracy should have prevailed. So it was a communication issue. It was a communication issue. So I don't want to say this one caused the split, because that would be ahistorical. It was differences of communication, but these differences have been boiling over. Yeah. And the reason why these differences have been boiling over is that when we started, we were all together.
Yeah.
Then after 2000 June, there was a problem which we didn't realize we had. And this was the problem that some people were now in parliament, but the leader of the party was not in parliament. So you now had a party that had its own life in parliament, and that parliament was the best parliament I was ever in.
Right.
Very academic, very boisterous, very aggressive, very territorial. Chinamasa was the Minister of Justice, and anyone who knows Chinamasa knows that he's an unmitigated thug. And then you had on our bench, fantastic people like Paul Tembanyati, the late Lenmo Jongwe, myself, the likes of Job Scala. So it was a mixture of academia, a mixture. You had Chenjerai Wunji, the war veteran leader. Land acquisitions were taking place. So it was a very contested space. But if you read the Hansard, it also was very cerebral. It was also, it was also very academic. I mean, people went there, to research. So it became a center of the struggle.
Yeah.
It became a zone of the struggle, but the president was not in. Morgan was not in. So it kind of created a chasm between him and his other leaders. They're the top six. So it kind of created a chasm. So again, it's communication. So we didn't manage communication well, and so if there's any lesson in politics, is that politics is not a marriage.
Yeah.
In a marriage, one foot stands on the pulpit and says, I do, the other one says, I do. Even though you come from different backgrounds, you actually agree to say we're going to spend the rest of our lives together. But in politics, you are just united on one unitary point. We want democratic change. But you are so different in everything else.
And how to achieve it.
And how to achieve it, you agree, because you either say we want to pick up arms or we're going to be democratic. So there you agree. But unless you are able then to realize that you also need different symmetries of communication, then you have a problem. And unfortunately, because it's not enough just to meet in the arena and sphere of politics and then think that you can have sustainable. You must be able to go to dinner together. You must be able to have conversations outside politics together, whether it's discussing how poor Dynamos is or how poor Arsenal is. Those conversations are necessary.
Yeah. So on the topic of splits, I'd say the 2005 was as a result of Westwing Ube. You think otherwise? 2013, or is it 2013 or 2014? Another split happened as well.
Communication.
Which is
communication. Communication.
To records, it was caused by Tendai Biti.
Yeah.
So these splits.
It's communication.
Yeah, these splits that keep.
As I said, it's not ideological. It's not ideological. It's communication. It's communication. We need to, and I speak for Zimbabwe as a whole. We have not learned to manage and to salvage differences in the marriage setup and in family setups. That's the role yana tete. In the political context, there are no tetes. So small differences become magnified. They become, and they implode. I find the same disease in churches as well. I'm a member of the Anglican Church. We had an ugly fallout with, with Kunonga. I've been watching what has been happening in the IFM Church and so forth. I'm currently in court right now at the center of a huge church dispute in one of the churches in Zimbabwe. The same problem. Communication. So if there's a lesson at all of what is happening in the church, what is happening in our political parties, it must be communication and the capacity to salvage a common thread in a sea of differences and in a sea of toxicity. Because to split is very easy, but to build is extremely difficult.
Yeah. But when it comes to, I want to talk about the split that is attributed to you. Do you not feel that as politicians you need to do more in terms of the communication you allude to? Because a lot of people look up to that.
That's exactly my point.
And then now there's no opposition.
That's exactly my, you are not talking about 2023 and 2024. That's another miscommunication era. But I want to talk about 2014. On the 9th of January, 9th of June, 2017, Morgan Changirai called me at his house in Highlands, across the road. So he said, look, we made our mistakes in 2014, both of us. And he looked me in the eye and said, look, we have to give the people of Zimbabwe a chance. And giving people of Zimbabwe a chance means that, and I'm quoting what he said, we have to put the Humpty Dumpty of what we had before. So you have to be on the table, and Welshman Nube has to be on the table. So I said, Mr. President, I hear you. That time he was not well, as all of us know. He had colon cancer. And I looked at him in the eye, and I could feel that the person I'm talking to is at another level. I'm here physically. He's also here physically, but part of him is no longer here.
Right.
You understand? I could see in his eyes. Right. Yeah, and so when I went to speak to my family, I said, look, I'm going to go back to Morgan. And some of my people said, are you sure? And I said, yeah, because the man I was speaking to was half here and half there. The following week we had a meeting with Walsh, the three of us now, and we agreed to come back together. The rest is history. That led to the formation of the MDC alliance. And when the last time I saw him on the 6th of January, 2018, he called me and said, he always called me SG, even though I was no longer the SG. So he says, hey, SG, I'm going away, but I might not come back. But you guys start working with Chamisa, you start working, and Prof. Nube, you start working. If I come back, so be it. If I don't come back, please carry on the fire. So for me, if the differences are not ideological, if the differences are not based on values, because you shouldn't compromise on your values, then we should learn to compromise. We should learn to, as I said before, excavate a common thread out of the rubble of differences. But differences are easy. Yeah. Differences are easy, and the asymmetries are easy because you are coming from different backgrounds, and so forth. So that's the lesson that I can give to Zimbabwe.
And after having had such a beautiful conversation with the late founder leader of the MDC, how do you think he feels now when he sees what's happening with regards to the opposition?
It's sad and regrettable. I mean, look, we've gone back to square zero. The MDC was a fantastic organization. We used to call ourselves a part of excellence, and indeed we're a part of excellence. But I think there's still time that citizens must regroup. Remember, the political organ may have collapsed, but opposition has not collapsed, because opposition is my Ezra, who is in Chendambuya, who can't pay school fees for a child. My Ezra, so the opposition is a worker in Budiriro, who has not been paid for the last 6 months because the employer can't pay. The opposition are 4 million of our compatriots who are in the diaspora, who can come home because of the economic, difficult. The opposition is my Sekuru Oliver, who is at Paranyatwa Hospital, who has been waiting for an operation to remove a prostate gland, but the hospital can't deal with it. The opposition is empty shelves at OK Bazaars and so forth. The opposition are people in 4th Street who have been arrested for the past 6 months for selling, US dollars. So that can't go away, and we owe it to ourselves to reorganize and regroup.
It is widely reported that you and Nelson Chamisa, there's acrimony. Is this true?
People just talk. He's my brother. We, we go back a long way. He's my brother, so that is absolutely, rubbish. When I went to marry, Nelson Chamisa was part of the Munyai. That's how close we are. So it's a lot of nonsense.
I like how you say that's how close you were. In politics, a day is a long time. And what usually happens is
but people don't know whether we are talking or not. And if we are talking, what we are talking about. That's why I said what you know publicly is a lot of nonsense.
So why are you talking?
Because you don't have my WhatsApp number. You understand? Yes.
Mr. Biti, so are you talking?
Yes.
When was the last time you spoke to him?
I can't give you specificities.
But
Very recently.
No, Mr. Biti,
very recently.
You know dates
very recently.
You're very good with dates,
1991, January 25. So was it 2025?
Yes, 2025.
Okay.
Yeah, 2025. We spoke the last time we met physically was when we buried Stanford Moyo. When we buried Stanford Moyo. That was the last time we spoke. We met physically, right. But we have spoken.
Right. Okay. So there is a general understanding that all opposition forces need to come together for them to make a difference, right? I think there's an agreement. Whether it's not something that you speak about on a daily basis, but from what you said, you realize that each of you, as individuals, are not as powerful as you together.
Well, look, the beauty of the MDC was that it was a movement. It brought everyone together. It brought business together, it brought labor together, it brought the church together. So it was a mixed salad. Yeah. I think we should learn from the beauty of that process. Let's create another mixed salad, united on a popular front. What is that popular front? To achieve transformation in Zimbabwe, to achieve democracy in Zimbabwe, to give jobs to our people, to industrialize our country, to modernize our country, to decarbonize our country. That should be the agenda.
Right. So before you stood down, you were one of the vice presidents of the CCC. And recently in the news, I read that almost 50 MPs from CCC went to the president's farm and were given a tour, and I believe it was reported that they are in support of the president's, or rather Zanu PF's plans to seek an amendment to the constitution so that the current president can run till 2030. Are you in support of this as being one of the former vice presidents of this party?
It's tragedy and betrayal. You can't go to Kwekwe, to Precept Farm, whatever it is called, and then still purport to call yourself opposition. That can't happen. It can't happen. It's just not possible. The biggest existential threat that we face in the country at the moment is Mr. Mnangagwa's attempt to extend his term of office and to amend the constitution by removing term limits.
Is it the president? Because I saw even today
It is the president.
a press statement that came out. The president has not come out and
is
said it.
The,
Ziyambi, I know has said
Denny
it.
J.
And a number of
Denny
people have
J.
said it.
Denny J. I'm a student of history. This lot never say they want. It is always the people who want. But they always respect the people and say, what can I do?
So
Yoweri Museveni didn't want, but the constitution was mutilated. Hofet Bwinyi of Cote d'Ivoire didn't want, but the people wanted for him. My friend Abdoulaye Wade of Senegal didn't want, but he respected the people. The dictator Siad Barre of Somalia didn't want. So they never do it. In Blaise Compaoré of Burkina Faso didn't want. So these dictators, they sing from the same blueprint. They sing from the same copybook. I don't want, but the people want me. I don't want, the people want me. I don't want, the people want me. That playbook is being replayed in Zimbabwe.
So you are ready to judge even though the president hasn't said anything, because you've seen the blueprint.
The president wants. The president is the most powerful man in this country. If he genuinely didn't want, this nonsense will stop.
So,
But right now there's a department, either at CIO, there's a department working on Agenda 2030. That's why a motion is being moved by Mtodi in Parliament. That's why MPs are going to Kwekwe. It's a script, Baba. It's going to play out in broad daylight. Yakanyorwa kudhara. All those are just actors in a script that has been written. And the president is the director. And your program has got a director, Kuseru. Trapabalas is the director of this script.
So you are being a constitutional lawyer, I'm
Yes,
sure.
I am.
What needs to happen for Zanu PF's agenda to carry on, if they indeed are trying to get a third term? What needs to happen?
So the legal processes are these. Firstly, a constitutional bill has to be gazetted.
Okay.
That constitutional bill must lie in state for 90 days.
Okay.
With other bills, it's just 14 days before you have a first reading in Parliament. When that bill has been gazetted for 90 days, after 90 days, it can then be tabled in Parliament for its first reading.
Okay.
When it's tabled in Parliament for its first reading,
can I just ask, why 90 days and not 14?
that's the
For this
Constitution,
particular
because it's
one.
such an important bill. The Constitution is so important.
Right.
So I'm meaning the Constitution can be equated to normal legislation.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's why the Constitution specifically says
90 days.
it's part of protecting the Constitution. Right. And the idea behind the 90 days is that so that everyone in the country knows what is happening. So there's a mandatory gazetting for 90 days period. After that, it must be tabled in Parliament. After that, the Constitution demands that any law, there must be public consultation, Section 143 of the Constitution. So this bill has to be taken to the countryside for consultation. And of course, as we have seen in any bills where there's public interest, for instance, the death penalty, people will flock. Mm-hmm. And on this one, I can assure you that people are going to flock.
So public consultation does not necessarily mean referendum.
It's a different stage. I'm coming to that. Right. I'm coming to the referendum. Then, when these consultations have taken place, the relevant committee, perhaps they will form a special committee, or they will use the Justice and Legal Parliamentary Portfolio Committee, who will then report to Parliament. When it reports to Parliament through its chairperson, what is called the second reading debate starts. When the second reading debate starts, the bill will then be referred to committee. The committee is the actual drafting. If it passes, it goes for a second reading. So the MPs will say yes, it then goes for a third reading. At the third reading now, 2/3 of members of the National Assembly must approve.
Okay.
So this whole agenda of buying out members of parliament, of creating characters like Chabangu, is intended now to secure the 2/3 majority that is required. So that's in the National Assembly. It then goes to the Senate, where a similar process starts: first reading, second reading, and then 2/3. 2/3 of the membership of the Senate must vote. Once the bill has been approved by 2/3 of Parliament, that is to say 2/3 in the National Assembly and 2/3 in the Senate, it must then go to a referendum, because it is a bill altering term limits in the country. The referendum is a simple process, Baba. The referendum simply asks whether you are saying yes or no. Ndopati chapedzerana ipapo. Ipapapo. Ndopati chapedzerana Traba Palace. Because we are going to campaign and live in the mountains to get that no vote. There's a second problem. The Constitution then says, when you change this Constitution and you remove the term limits, it doesn't benefit the incumbent.
It benefits the next.
It benefits the next. But you can change that provision.
Same process.
Yeah, we call it the Abdoulaye Wade provision. Because President Abdoulaye Wade amended the Constitution for a third time, and Senegalese said, it can't benefit you. And he lost at that stage. And that's why President Sall came in. And as fat as Yazid, as you know, President Macky Sall also tried to change the Constitution to benefit him. Yet he came through a process of rejecting a third term agenda. Right. That's why you can't trust people. But anyway, to come back to the legal process, another referendum is required now to change the constitutional provision that says you can't benefit. That's when we will see Trababala's true colors, because all along you'll be saying, I don't want Vandova Kuda. Now when he says, now the Akuda, the constitution has to go to a referendum for the second time. Baba, pakaipa. Tusangana makomo. Tusangana kwa Chendampuya. Tusangana ku Dotito. Tusangana ku Eskodini. Tusangana ku Binga. Tusangana ku Cholocho. He can't win those referendums. He cannot win those referendums.
Okay.
So to put it very crudely, the idea of a third term agenda is fraught with such legal landmines that you would have to be so ambitious, so insane, so drunk, or both to ever think that it can actually carry out and see the light of the day.
These are a lot of shots. Should I be pressing shots? I forgot. I'm so into the conversation. People are going to ask.
So Mr. Biti, are you saying it's impossible?
With the mood of the people, right? Because remember, ultimately, among the desire to protect the Constitution, because we should treat the Constitution as our Bible.
Sacrosanct.
It's sacrosanct. I couldn't have said it better. You have never seen the bishop or the pope in Rome saying, I want to amend Malachi chapter 4 verse 2. We don't amend the Bible. Why should we amend our Constitution?
Okay, so
it's a social contract. And remember that this Constitution, Denny, we went to a referendum on the 21st of March 2013.
Yeah.
And 3 million people, or 93% of those who participated in the referendum, voted for it to say yes. So who are you now to come and change this Constitution? And remember, when Zanu PF and Trababalas have got their manifesto of 2023, they never campaigned on the basis that they were going to amend and mutilate the constitution. So where are they getting this mandate from?
So will you be surprised if the president were to come on TV and say, no, what these guys are doing is their own business?
I challenge him. I challenge him. I challenge him.
Because
to
the last we heard from him
is
was
Tendai Biti on this, the 24th of January, in the year of our Lord 2025. I challenge Emerson Dambudzo Mafidi Munangagwa to say to me and the people of Zimbabwe, and I will stop Chris Mutsangwa, I will stop Ziyambi, I will stop July Moyo, I will stop Owen Mudangube, and I will stop, I will reverse the resolution of October 21 of the Zanu PF conference that was held in the Seat of Kings in Bulawayo.
Is that not a way of then, no, I just want to, for argument's sake, like if he is to muffle voices, like let's say there are people who genuinely think it makes sense. Yes, it doesn't make sense to you and a lot of people. What if there are people who believe it makes sense and they're making noise about it? Does democracy not say they should be allowed?
It's not about democracy, it's about the constitution. We democratically accepted a constitution that said you do 2 terms and you go home. And we did that for a reason. We had a president who had been with us for 34 years. We had become so old that he couldn't take himself to the bathroom. So to cure that mischief of a president who was there in perpetuity, we, the people of Zimbabwe, agreed on a constitution that says, you do your 5 years. But if we love you, we might give you a sign. That principle is sacrosanct. We all come, we all go. There are 16 million people in this country. Why would I unamira pachigaro? Uri ani?
Okay. Point.
Kana kuchechi cha utochinja mabishop. Kwedu ku Anglican Church in the last 10 years, tatina Bishop Bakari. Kunonga akauya tikamvisa. Bishop Gandia vakauya vakaenda. Iko zvinotina Bishop Farai. Ku Dynamos tochinja makochi every year. Ku Burial Society tochinja machairman every year. Ku Goromonzi High School maticha ishona toachinja after every 2 years. Zvaunoziva yote.
Okay, let me take you back to finance. Right.
Yes.
You were the Minister of Finance, I think
Yes.
it was 2009 to
2013.
Tell us about that experience and the challenges that you faced as the Minister of Finance in the GNU.
It was a big challenge. Remember, the GNU came when the economy collapsed in absolute terms. Between 1997, when the government gave out payouts to war veterans,
Right.
and when the government embarked in the war in DRC, between 1997 to 2008, our economy had collapsed by 60%. And you remember, on the 14th of November 1997, we had Black Friday. Our currency collapsed by 70%. Then you know around 2006, we had zeros. 26 zeros were removed from the bearer check. By end of 2008, the government was printing $100,000 trillion note that couldn't buy you 2 bottles of soda. That's what I inherited. Inflation was 500 billion%. The second highest in the history of mankind after Hungary in 1956. So that is what faced me. So I had no illusion about that task. And I remember I started work on the 16th of February. I remember actually sitting on my desk and praying and saying to God, you've never failed me. How can you bring me here? Kundinyadzisa in front of 14 million people. Yeah. So it was tough. It was tough. But thank God we pulled it.
You know, as the Minister of Finance back then, and looking at, the monetary statement that came out at the time just later last year, and how the Reserve Bank Governor and the Minister of Finance have handled things, how would you have done it differently? All these things that they've done.
So there are fundamental challenges. There are fundamental challenges in the governance of our economy. The economy is about trust and confidence. The economy is about building a social contract, a belief that this government is there for us and will look after us. And unfortunately, I know you don't want hard politics, but if your people don't have confidence in you, then you have a problem. If there's no trust, we are having a problem with our own currency. It's really a reflection of lack of confidence in the authorities that are administering Zimbabwe. So, at a technical point of view, this is what needs to be done. This is what we did in 2009 to 2013. This is not what is happening now. The first thing, a government must live within its means. I used to say, we eat what we kill. If you earn $10, Denny J, your wife can spend $2,000. If you earn $10, that house will be a disaster. Creditors will come, you'll be foreclosed. In economics, 1 minus 2, it can't. If you say 1 minus 2 is equal to minus 1, you've got a problem. You must balance your books. And the problem then is not so much that there are deficits. America runs the biggest budget deficit in the world. But that's not a problem, it's a functional economy. So it's not so much the deficit, it's how you finance it, how you finance that gap.
Right.
Why touch credit? How do you finance that gap? If, in my example, you then start selling your bed, your stove, then you have a problem. It means you are sinking yourself deeper into the economic quagmire. So the problem with Zimbabwe is we have been financing this debt through creative, illegal means, like printing of money. The printing press has been busy. But when you print money, it's self-defeating. Because when too much money chases too few goods, you have what is called a crisis of accumulation. Everyone becomes a billionaire, a trillionaire, but you're poor trillionaires. Before the ZIG was introduced, all of us had 100,000 RTGS in our pockets, but that was worthless. That is the problem. So it's how you finance. So live within your means. In fact, I would propose that let's amend the Public Debt Management Act and put a cap on the budget deficit and say to Mtulingube and say to Trababala's government, you can't borrow more than 3% of your revenues. That's number one. Live within your means. Eat what you kill. Number two, don't fight the exchange rate. Don't fix the exchange rate. Because the exchange rate is determined by market forces. So you can't go to Zvareseko and tell a landlord that you must charge rental for your room for $10. It won't work. It can't work. Equally, you can't say to the world, as they're trying to do right now, that the ZIG is 1:34. It's an artificial price. Float it. When you float it, it will find a natural resting place. If you've been to Kenya, if you've been to Tanzania, if you've been to Uganda, the shilling, the Kenyan, the East African shilling, whether it's a Kenyan, whether it's a Ugandan, whether it's Tanzanian, for decades has been around 1:6,000. 6,000 is not a small figure, Baba, but it's stable. It's stable. So it's not the big zeros that matter, it's stability, it's predictability. So now, because we've mismanaged the currency, I mean, take the ZIG, the conundrum around the ZIG and the disaster around the ZIG. You introduce a currency, Baba, on the 5th of April 2024. And you lie to the whole world that this currency is gold-backed. You even open up the vaults of the Reserve Bank and we see shiny bars of the yellow metal. But by 28th of September, you've got the indecency, kusanyara kwacho, the indecency of saying we have devalued the ZIG. But how do you devalue something that is backed by gold, Baba? It doesn't make sense. Makadakwa here, murukuputa banje here, mutoriro here, iguka here, ibrongo here, inyaope here, chibuke here, inyati here. What are you smoking?
So why is there a reluctance to float the exchange rate? I think there must be a good answer, because everyone.
No, they think that, you see, they think, so for instance, right now, the new governor, my friend John Mushayalan, is so fixated with ensuring that the black market rate remains constrained. And right now it is stuck at around 1:34, 1:33. And he actually thinks he's doing a good job. So he has literally blocked the supply of ZIG in the market. But when there is no money in the market as it is right now, there's no trade, because money is the oxygen of trade. I run a law firm. We are constrained. Clients can't pay. So there is now a ZIG-induced recession. There is now a ZIG-induced depression. What is the net income? The net output is companies are closing. Big banks are retrenching. Companies are relocating. The Zimbabwe Stock Exchange is in the red. But your solution is artificial. When you have got diarrhea, Denny, I will soon get the colon and the rectum. Where's that zone? That's artificial. Unorapa the cause. Unorapa the cause. I will soon get rectum. So the governor's solution, because my temperatures of work, my contractor, my roads have to be paid. They borrowed millions and millions of dollars for SADC. The taps are going to be open. And once the taps are open, it will implode. The market will implode. In my example of rectum, the diarrhea will go, you know. Pakaipa baba. Pakaipa baba. So, you know, Mutuli Ngube is supposed to be a professor of economics, but whatever university that gave him a doctor should take it away from him, because he is putting into disrepute that university. But this is not economics, it's feja logic. There's no logic at all. So the exchange rate must be sorted. The exchange rate must be sorted. Thirdly, Denny, corruption. Corruption. You see, an economy is a basket of resources. When you are a finance minister, you are carrying water in a bucket. So you are trying to water a little bed called hospitals there, a little bed called schools there, a little bed called civil servants there, a little bed called public sector infrastructure, like roads, dams, and so forth. But if the bucket you are carrying to water these little beds, kanarakaboka baba richibvinza baba, apana zvaurikuita. So the bucket, the metaphoric bucket of the Zimbabwean treasury has got so many leakages. Leakage number 1, Command Agriculture, kurukuru wa mari sekuru. Leakage number 2, Mutapa Fund, kurukuru wa mari as if mshongo msana. Leakage number 3, the US dollar itself. For certain people, the auction system was a means of arbitrage. Leakage number 3, fuel. The fuel sector is just arbitrage. Who controls it? Who owns the service stations? Who is controlling the pipeline? Leakage number 5, my contracts, Baba, particularly road contracts. Who is doing the roads? Have they ever gone to tender? No. Leakage number 6, the various subsidies that are being given in the economy. They are vehicles of arbitrage. So the bucket is leaking. The bucket is leaking. I was reading the 2025 budget. So Mutuli published a separate handbook on the country's debt. And I'm going to go to court on this. I'm going to go to court on this. Under domestic debt, 2 debts are given. There is a debt of, or acknowledged, there is a debt of 3.5 billion US dollars for farmers, to compensate the farmers. Baba, there is a debt of US $1.9 billion.
What's that one for?
Is for the Mutapa Fund. So Mutapa Fund has created US $1.9 billion to pay some fund that, it's just ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. So these are leakages. So corruption has to be sorted out. Number 4, we have to sort the issue of sovereign debt. The publicly acknowledged debt, the $1.9 billion is purportedly owed by Mutapa to Kuvimba.
The 1.9.
The 1.9 billion US dollars. But who is Kuvimba? Who is behind Kuvimba? Let's lift the corporate veil and see what behind Kuvimba. Because people can just steal taxpayers' money, $1.9 billion, when we don't have cancer machines in hospitals, when we don't have drugs in hospitals, when children in maternity wards who are in those incubators are dying because magets are going. Can't happen.
So this information is not readily available. They just write 1.9 billion. They don't specify where the amounts or who is owed.
They are saying we owe $1.9 billion to Kuvimba.
Yeah.
But how does Kuvimba become 1.9? Because only 2 years ago, you told us that the entire value of Kuvimba was $300 million. That was its market capitalization.
So it has ballooned to 1.9.
It has ballooned. And 1.9 represents ownership of 35% of Kuvimba. But how does something that was $300 million in total value suddenly expand Yakaita Numbu? So that 35% now translates to $1.9 billion.
Which means the total value is 6 billion around there.
Can you imagine? And what asset is worth $6 billion in Zimbabwe? Delta itself is not worth $6 billion. Econet is not worth $6 billion. So it's a dog's breakfast, Denny J. But a dog's breakfast that my dogs will not touch, not by a long mile. Not at all. So,
just
so many bars, yeah.
To some of us who didn't go to university, we don't really know politics that well, or in economics.
Not politics,
No, just economics.
Impava.
No, I'm not. I'm just want to ask.
No, it just wants clarity.
How much does this country need per month, and how much does the country make per month? Are those figures?
Yes. Yeah. We collect in a good year. We collect at least $4 billion US dollars. That's what is received in terms of taxes and so forth. $4 billion is a lot of money. This government and the people of this country can survive on $11 billion. But we've got windows which we can expand. The mining sector is an easy hanging fruit, is a low hanging fruit, particularly beneficiation, value addition. Look at lithium, because we've got about 4 minerals that are world class, Baba. We've got gold, world class deposits. We've got platinum, world class deposits. And remember, when you say platinum, it's a term, a generic term for 6 PMGs, 6 metals like palladium, like lithium and so forth. So platinum yakabata baba. We've got world-class deposits of diamonds. We've got world-class deposits of chrome. We now have world-class deposits of lithium. Lithium is the new thing because lithium is at the center of the decarbonization agenda. You understand? The future is lithium. If you can put iron ore as well, because we've got over 40 billion metric tons of iron ore. We've got 63 minerals, Baba. Botswana down the road has got 1 mineral, but it has got US $10 billion reserves. My bank account, Baba, you said $300.
So how expensive is a lithium refinery if the government was serious about establishing one?
I was going to mention names. Some of the companies lie. About the establishment of I'll start with the platinum refinery. So they'll give figures of between 500 million to $1 billion
To establish a refinery.
to establish a platinum refinery. And the reason why they don't want a platinum refinery in Zimbabwe is because platinum is at the epicenter of illicit financial flows in Zimbabwe. As I told you before, platinum is mined along the Great Dyke. The Great Dyke is a rich granite sediment of minerals that stretches the heart of Zimbabwe, 570 kilometers. So when you dig and you've got, let's say, 30 tons of soil, of sediment, in that soil now, there are these 6 things, including gold itself. So there will be lithium, there will be rhodium, there will be palladium, there will be platinum itself. So because we don't have a refinery, it's then done external.
Oh, so we're losing gold, we're losing all these other...
We are then told that this is what we got. But there's no John Chibadura there to verify the authenticity. That's why these platinum houses don't want. We have got in Bindura that nickel mine. Nickel is one of the metals. That nickel refinery, Bindura, Trojan nickel mine, can actually refine platinum.
What they can?
It can. Because it's a metal. The process, I'm not a scientist. You are just extracting from the same stone and the ore, you're just extracting different products depending on the heat. Because they melt at different levels.
Right.
You understand? They melt at different. That's all you're doing. So you either increase temperature or reduce. That's all you are doing, Baba, to put it very crudely. So what the platinum houses have been doing, I don't know whether they've been bribing people or what, but they've been pushing the date for the construction
Of the
refinery. Meaning they've been, and once you do a refinery, beneficiation is now easier.
Plus jobs are created.
We have a platinum industry in Zimbabwe, but we don't. So we are making other countries richer.
So this goes as well for the same for diamonds and all these metals.
Diamonds are even a sadder story, Denny. I said with platinum you may require anything between 300 million to $1 billion to do a refinery. With the diamonds, the first thing is polishing. Polishing is a manual exercise. Yet our diamonds are not polished here.
They go and roll for.
They go and employ people elsewhere in Dubai just to polish, and it's a manual job. You don't need a degree for that. Then cutting is also now being just done by machines that you just import. Botswana does it. But here in Zimbabwe, because we've got politicians who say are patriotic and go with a flag that is patriotic, But there's nothing patriotic about them except that their insatiable appetite for rent and rent behavior in our country. So diamonds are diamonds. There's nothing complicated about diamonds.
There's just no appetite.
There's just no appetite to transform our country. So 45 years after independence, we are one of the richest mineral-rich countries. But in terms of GDP and growth rate, we're one of the poorest countries in sub-Saharan Africa, only doing slightly better than basket cases such as Swaziland, Lesotho, and Malawi.
So, Mr. Biti, I know you say it's a Zimbabwean problem, but is it also not an African problem as to why Africa is still very poor, yet we have all the resources needed?
You are right to say it's an African problem, but different African countries are reacting very differently. So some countries and the African Union has come up with a mining framework. So some countries, the resource nationalization is higher. So in South Africa, for instance, these refineries are there, gold refineries are there, and so forth. You could say it was infrastructure that was built by the apartheid state, but it's there. So you can't compare South Africa with the rest of the African countries. But yes, it's an African problem. It pains me that oil-rich countries like Nigeria, like Angola, have fuel shortages because they don't have sufficient refinery capacity. And when people like Dangote try to have refineries, the government finds problems with them. So yes, in general terms, it's an African disease. But having said that, I want to qualify that by saying there are Panama countries like Achangamuka Sekuru. Rwanda is a good example. Panama countries who have said, look, this is ours. Botswana is getting a lot of value from its diamonds. And the new president right now is busy negotiating a new agreement with the De Beers that will benefit the Botswana people. So, Munom Zimbabwe, we've got a coterie of politicians.
Sorry, Mr. Biti, I want to cut you. Let's go back to Botswana. Does he have to negotiate with De Beers? Why can't they do it on their own? Why do they have to use De Beers? From contracts they made 3,000 years ago.
Because De Beers has a contract with the government.
No, that's what I'm saying, but then from what I heard before, I think they were getting a very small percentage.
Yeah, so yeah, they're negotiating
so
a bigger.
Yeah. And then why are they negotiating with another company when the diamonds are theirs?
Yeah. Don't.
Is that not a legacy thing? The deal was done.
Also, apart from that, the government can't do everything. The government can't create wealth. The private sector creates wealth. So you should say Botswana, citizens must run that. I can hear that argument. But to say the government per se must go in mine, it can't happen.
Maybe not the government, but
I think you're saying, why is there even De Beers in the equation? Yeah. Is that what we're saying?
Because firstly, it's kimberlite diamond processing. It's kimberlites. They are different from the Marange diamonds that were alluvial. Marange we're going to nonga ni spoon chayo. So with kimberlite diamonds, just like with platinum, you can't start a platinum mine without $300 million. No government has that money. So the private sector must come in to dig because it's down. In kimberlite diamonds, you are going down. So that's why the private sector comes in.
But are you saying, Botswana, like for example in Zimbabwe, are you saying the business people here cannot fundraise that tissues at 500 million?
It will be very difficult. We've got a small economy. It will be very difficult. We need foreign direct investment. It's big money, Baba.
So this is why we keep getting poorer and poorer as Africa.
No, it's not. Foreign direct investment is not the problem. It is how that investment comes in, how it's structured, and what it is doing. Take the Chinese; they are raping our country because our government is giving them a blank check. So it's not the problem of the Chinese. The problem is stupid, greedy government. In other countries, the Chinese don't do what they're doing. Look at what Donald Trump is doing. I'm not a fan of or supporter of Donald Trump. But he has told them that, look, I'm going to tariff you because of an unequal relationship. So the manner you are exploited, if you're a black government, it's a reflection of your own craft competence, your own knowledge, your own expertise, and your own patriotism. If you are a thief who will be paid a $2 million bribe by a Chinese and you give them a concession, then you are a fool. And regrettably, there are too many fools in this country.
Are you answered?
No, I'm good.
He's okay, but he's unhappy. I can see his face.
No, but there's so many questions that.
You're very passionate about this topic, and I can probably understand why as a lawyer who has want to fight for the people. But what can be done? This is where we are. What can you and I do?
Value addition, Baba. We need value chains in this economy. I've identified over 60 value chains. Let me give you an example, Denny. I own a house that is along Enterprise Road, in Powland Way. I used to live there. I lived there for 12 years. Every day, every single day, 365 days of a year, there are trucks, there are women on trucks that come from Mutoko to go to Mbari Msika, selling different products, whether it's tomatoes, whether it's cabbages, whether it's potatoes, whether it's carrots. Every day around 5-6 p.m., those same women are now on the back of this little diner truck, sitting very dangerously. Their lives have not changed for the last 20-30 years. They are poor. But imagine if we had a tomato value chain at Mutoko Growth Point. We had a factory there that made tomato paste, that made the ketchup, the Americans would love to call it, tomato sauce, that made tomato puree, that made tomato juice, yoiswa mukabhodhoro kanaka, yakanzi Denny J tomato juice Mutoko. Can you imagine how that would transform
Mutoko?
The people in Mutoko, Vanashumba Nyamzio, Mabuchka. That's one value chain. That's just one value chain.
But who's supposed to do that?
The government must engineer that.
Not private
The
sector?
government must create, I said the government must create the framework for doing that.
Okay.
Yeah, whether it's legislation, whether it's whatever, and so forth. Take the tobacco value chain. 90% of the tobacco that is grown in Zimbabwe goes out of Zimbabwe. Is raw tobacco. A large chunk of it actually goes to Mozambique, where it's then processed, not in Zimbabwe, and then value added. The farmer will get 4 cents, 5 cents, 6 cents a kilogram, which is a very good price, by the way. But Mudzanga one will get $1. But there's no value addition. There's no value addition. So can you imagine if we had tobacco processing plants that would process a mere 40% of our tobacco?
But we do have capacity. We have people who make cigarettes, but
90% is going out today. 90% is going out. US $1 billion worth of cigarettes and tobacco is being smuggled out of the country every year. Only this week, go on the internet, a truck was caught at Beitbury border post seeking to smuggle our tobacco.
were they trying to smuggle the tobacco or the cigarettes? I think it was cigarettes, right?
But here from Zimbabwe.
Yeah.
Here from Zimbabwe.
our
So we need to create value chains. Take lithium. Why should we allow raw lithium to be exported through Forbes border ports in Mutare to go to Sofala, Baera, when in Mashingo at Bikita Minerals, we can, for 20 million, put a lithium processing plant that will make lithium batteries. We transform the energy sector in Zimbabwe. We have imports we have exports to other countries of lithium. My friend Chris Mchangwa always boasts about Manizi. Manizi is building a pipeline that will take raw iron ore to Sofara to Beira to export raw ore instead of us processing here. I asked the Minister of Trade the other day, we met at a ZNCC function, and I asked him, why are you allowing this? He said, I know, we produce more than what we require. I said, but that's not a justification for this raw exportation of a raw commodity.
Process it and export it.
Yeah. So, Denny, the accumulation model in Zimbabwe is false and wrong. It is false and wrong because it is based on extraction of raw commodities. Payakasiwa yakadaro na Sisu John Rhodes arere pamatopa do paichi. So if you work Sisu John Rhodes, you will laugh at you and say, these Africans. Where I left you, that's where you still are. The only thing you did was to remove where my name was, where Jameson's name was, and put Samora Machel. But you have done nothing to alter the fundamental structure of this economy, which is a raw extractive economy. And as long as we have a raw extractive economy, we can't grow. We can't transform this economy.
Okay. All right, I think we could go on this one. Let's go to the issue of title deeds. I know you're very passionate about the issue of the government's intention to give title deeds to holders who were resettled under the resettlement scheme.
So the legal questions I'll deal with, then I'll deal with the political economy issue. So you saw on the 3rd of December last year a function that was, at that farm in Kwekwe, where title deeds were actually being handed to people. This is the law, then. The government gazetted land from 2000. Then farmers fought the acquisitions and so forth. In 2005, Chinamasa moved an amendment called Section 16B, capital letter B. So Chinamasa moved the 16B amendment. And in Section 16B, Chinamasa said, to hell, there is no court, we can't be challenged. So any land that has just been gazetted now belongs to us. You can't take us to court.
Us being the state.
Us being the state. 2, there is no compensation for this land. There's no compensation for this land. Except for improvement. 3, the former colonial power must compensate. 4, this is Section 72, subsection 5 of the Constitution. Section 72, subsection 5 of the Constitution. Because they wanted to make sure that Wise did not have any claim at all. They said, all title deeds now on this land, the minute that we have gazetted and acquired, the title deed is cancelled. And the registrar of deeds must be informed so that he cancels the title deed. So in other words, the farmer can't go now and say, this is my title, that title deed is cancelled. So all title deeds on agricultural land were cancelled. So Mnangagwa can't give away, as he was purporting to do on the 3rd of December, title deeds on former white man's land, on agricultural land, because those title deeds don't exist at all. It's one of the, this man always makes legal blunders consistently. And yet he wants another 5 more years. But anyway, that's another debate. I now come to title deeds. The essence of the liberation struggle was land, Denny. When white people came in Zimbabwe and made King Lobengula sign the Rad concession, they thought they were coming for gold. But by 1896, they realized that there was no gold in southern Rhodesia, So they turned their attention to land, then. By 1911, they'd acquired 24 million acres of land. And do you know how they used to do it? You'd ride on a horse, wokwira dongiri area, parinoneta ndopaonesa muganu. This is true. Parinoneta kuti horse raneta ndopaonesa muganu. They looted land so much that amongst themselves they said, Varume, Trukunyanyoba, this is too much. And they formed what was called a loot committee. The first chairperson was Thomas Mikkels.
Was it actually called a loot committee?
It was called a loot committee. Okay. You could imagine there must be honor amongst thieves. Trukunyanyoba. I think I'm a blast. I don't know if I'm a loot committee manja. So that's what they did. Now I said 1911. Yeah. They 24 million. 10 years later, by 2020, just a mere 9 years later, by 2020, they had 34 million acres of land in 9 years. Meaning, Tora land. By the time of the Land Apportionment Act, they had 51 million acres, which was 56% of the entire land population in Zimbabwe. That's why people went to war then. When they went to war, and remember, Africans were put in reserves with a total acreage of a mere 21 million acres, which by independence had been reduced to 16 million acres. And by the time of the land reform program, was 19 million hectares. So, here's the deal. Why? Because of the Land Apportionment Act of 1931, blacks were not allowed to own land. In fact, the white people said, you blacks are too uncivilized to own land. And African customary law, there is no land, you can't own land. So African customary law was reinvented to deny the fact that Africans could own land. Munda wedu, budzi yedu, and so forth. They said you are too uncivilized. The concept of private ownership of land is unknown. So land yakanzi, belong to the state through the president. Which is why today then, there's a contradiction in terms. I don't know where you come from.
Kamreo.
Kwamsami. So if you go Kwamsami today, you can't own a title deed in the land that your forefathers have been.
Right.
But you can own your house in Avondale in Borodale. Because in Avondale in Borodale, you just stepped into the shoes of the white men. So, how come 44 years after independence, a black man can't own a house in, his rural ancestral home in Wedza, in Chenambuya, in Cholocho? But anyway, so the grievance, yes, were white people. But the grievance was the title deed that white people had. Because when you have a title deed, Denny, you have privatized land. So that means someone like yourself can have 12 farms measuring 8,000 hectares, but the other people don't have. Which is why when the land reform took place, the government said, we are going to own this land. But we're going to give our people the right to stay there. Through offer letters, through 99-year leases. So that when you die, we can give it to the next person. Right. Or subdivide it. So the national grievance, yes, was against white owning land, but the gravamen of the grievance was the privatization of a public good that was not being owned by few people. There were less than 2,000 white people, 4,000 white people who were owning 90% of the best land in Zimbabwe. Right. So when Mr. Mnangagwa then says, I'm now issuing private title deeds to people, he's reversing the land reform program.
Is he not benefiting black people? Is that not better?
But black people already own the land they're already occupying it. How can they can't benefit doubly? Who is occupying land? It's black people. So what are you talking about?
The argument has always been that these people have been given land, but they cannot borrow against...
Yes. So let's make the 99-year lease... Apothecable. You've yet me speak. Let's give it bankable features. It is very easy. In England, in the United Kingdom, people don't own land, rural land, commons. Belongs to the state. You get a lease that can be sold if you fail to pay your debt with CBZ or with the stand.
So that farmland in England is not its own.
Commons.
Oh.
Yes. Okay. For the same reason. They're commons. They're commons.
So you can farm for however long, but the land belongs to the state.
Yeah, but you've got a leasehold. But doesn't mean that there are no private farms, but most of it are commons. So we simply needed to strengthen the legal regime of the lease and have an act of parliament, and also make sure that there are diagram deeds. You know, diagram deeds, the definition of the kuti. This farm is 6 hectares of land from point A and then point B, so that when the bank wants to attach, it knows what it was. That was the missing. So Mr. Mnangagwa is reversing the land reform program. What will happen is that in 10 years' time, cartels will be owning this land. In 50 years' time, we're back to square zero. We now have another land fight, this time against cartels, black cartels. The same cartels you see in fuel, in service stations, will now be on land. But it's illegal what it's trying to do, because the Constitution in section 295, subsection 5 says you cannot alienate without an act of parliament. In other words, parliament has to be consulted, and parliament must agree, and parliament must come up with this. Secondly, I noticed he has appointed someone, to run this program, a private individual. That is not allowed by the Constitution. Well, the Constitution has created a land commission. And the Constitution says anything to do with the land, the agricultural land, the land commission must be there. So it's a potpourri of legal errors. He also says that this land should only be transferred to indigenous black Zimbabweans. But the Constitution in section 298 says every Zimbabwean, regardless of race, has got a right to own land.
So are you saying that there's no legal minds in the ministries or in government to advise the president on these issues, or they have their own ways of going around this?
They are lawyers, but the problem is when you make policy after you have been drinking whiskey with your friends and say, I'm going to do it, that is the problem. Policies are being made after a bottle of Glenmorangie or a Blue Lab.
So your problem is
It's both the law and the political economy. I'm against this for the simple and good reason that it will just lead to deprivation, of the black people, and you are just restarting a new land struggle.
So what would you rather Mr. Mnangagwa do? To
Carry comparative studies of land tenure systems.
To fix this problem where people have land but they can't access capital to farm the land.
Make the lease bankable. Make the lease hypothecable.
And how do you do that?
Act of Parliament. Strengthened by an Act of Parliament. And they have good diagram deed so that your lease is as good as a title deed. The only difference is that it's 100 years when a title deed is in tenor, in perpetual. That's all.
Okay, so the current lease
And make the lease transferable.
We just put more weight on the lease agreement.
Yes, legal weight. And banks will accept that. But that's what happens in other countries.
What do you think, Nash?
Aneta.
I want to also ask you, we need to finish this land. And then I just also want to ask, what do you do for fun? For fun? Like, what does Mr. Biti do?
I watch a lot of cricket.
Relax.
Watch a lot of cricket.
Apart from attacking and castigating.
No, I read a lot.
Right.
Yeah, I read a lot. Novels, good novels. I spend a lot of time writing. I like music.
What I listen to right now? In your car?
Right now, Kendrick, the new Kanye West vouchers.
Let me see what I have. I don't have any.
I like Travis Scott.
Yes.
So ndakaipa sekud.
So you're in touch.
I'm in touch. Look, I've got a son who is 17 Tabo. So we share the same playlist. And Tabo is producing music. So yeah.
What's the name? He's a producer.
One of the somewhere on one side.
Yeah. He just started university. So we say the same. I really love Kanye West. Meaning I don't like Drake.
Yeah, that kind of a buzz.
So if the president were to
I also listen to Zim Danso.
Who are the artists? Who are your?
Oh, of course, I like Gaffa Winky Day. I think Freeman is a good artist.
Yeah.
I think Toki is a good artist. So Boys no Kia. But Gaffa is Gaffa. But Panakamfana Kanon's Madedido Kakaipa.
So if the president were to call you and say, we need your wisdom, your experience in trying to move things forward, what would your answer be to if the government were to approach you and say, we need help here, there? Are you bitter with them, or you are happy to move things forward?
Absolutely not. Don't personalize these things, Mda.
Yeah, because you're very passionate when you
Yes, because I'm a Zimbabwean and I love my country.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love my countries. I love my country, so you can't take that away from me. Look, I'm a professional. I'm a professional. So if they were to come to me and say, give us an opinion or advise us on the debt, I will advise them. I'm a professional. What I can't do is to join Zanu PF over my dead body. Over my dead. Kufa 200 times.
I mean, you'll be like Eddie Cross. Eddie Cross is not Zanu PF.
That's exactly my point. I will never be an Eddie Cross.
But Eddie Cross is not Zanu PF. He's very cozy with the
no,
but he's not Zanu.
It is Zanu. It's my friend. I love him. He's Zanu. Ukaona wasvika paproximity kuti unyora biography ravamnangagwa, how can you say you're not Zanu?
But he gets paid to do it. So if Mnangagwa were to approach you and say kuti tine maliga case adauto, and you do them, you are a lawyer.
Not for the president personally. No, I can't do that.
Why? Is it personal? It's now personal. Like I was asking.
No. I can't do that. But if the government of Zimbabwe says, Tendai, can you help us on debt? Can you help us? We are being taken to the National Court of Arbitration. Yes, I will act for them because I'm a professional.
Who's been the best governor and finance minister since?
The people must judge. I cannot.
No, but I'm saying you've been.
I can't.
Who's been the worst?
You are usually honest. You are usually honest.
No. You know the thing about governance. You see, you have to be. You see, I was in government. So, if you are an insider, I was an insider. I came from the MDC. I was an outsider, so I could say no. If you are not capable of saying no to a political instruction, then you can't survive. So I could say no, and on 3 occasions I said I'm resigning. You understand?
Yeah.
So one of the things about life is that never be indebted to someone, because if you are indebted to someone and you are owned by someone, then you can't be independent. I was independent, and fortunately, when I joined government, I was a partner in one of Zimbabwe's top law firms. So I didn't need anyone. It was national service, so I could say no. The word no is very important, my brother.
So are you saying they are good people, but the infrastructure forces them not to?
Absolutely. But they make you do things that they expect you to do things, and unless you can say no, which is why we are advocating for an autonomous reserve bank or the scrapping of the reserve bank totally, and we have a currency board. We don't need a reserve bank. We just need a currency board.
But how come with the way the economy has been going, Tulu has been on top, and things seem to be going the other way?
He's not independent. He's totally beholden to Emmerson Mnangagwa. He was picked in Switzerland, where he was working for a fund that soon thereafter was in trouble, Quantum, because of its connection with the Dos Santos family in Angola. So Emmerson Mnangagwa is his alpha and omega. He has no political capital. He didn't fight in the liberation struggle. So he has nothing. He's nothing. He's a nobody.
Do you think he's qualified for the job?
I've already answered that question. I've said whatever university bestowed him with his PhD must take it, because he's bringing that university into disrepute.
Are you not being harsh?
I'm being truthful, my friend. I speak the truth then.
But you must realize that this office, like you said, you were an outsider because you were MDC in the JNU. Here is a guy who is a political appointee, and he has to balance the economics and the finance with the politics. And at any given time, the politicians always call and ask you to do.
You see, that's why I said, Denny.
Is he not
Look, a
qualified guy who is working under strange conditions?
I also worked under them.
But you were
I also
MDC.
worked. No, that was not the issue. The issue was my character and the ability and capacity to say no. And most importantly, the ability to understand the legal framework of anything that I was doing. Because I was quick to make reference to a certain section of a particular statute. And that was so important. Chinamasa for all his crimes, was also guarded by the law, which is why Chinamasa is better than Mutuli Ngube. But Chinamasa was guarded by the law, even though he was a political animal.
And then going back to
I mean, can you imagine, Guti, when the ZIG was introduced on the 5th of April, the finance bill that brought it into life would only be signed in October of 2024. So for 8 months, the ZIG current was not bagged. Chinamasa would not do that.
That was a terrible oversight.
This government has made a living out of legal oversight. And they want 5 more years.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Going back to Tendai Biti, the lawyer. Let's talk about access to justice. A lot of marginal communities are not able to access legal services. How can the government assist in that regard?
Well, I mean, the government firstly must democratize the availability of courts. So, just like we democratize access to health, access to schools, we must also democratize the access to justice. So courts must be everywhere, particularly magistrate courts. So that's purely a government function, the establishment of courts. Then people need help. So this is where civic society comes in. Different organizations. The Zimbabwe Lawyers for Human Rights is doing a fantastic job, but it shouldn't be the only one. Legal aid centers, civic advisory councils should be everywhere. Should populate the country. It happens in other countries. Legal resource foundations must be everywhere. So this is where the private sector also comes in to chip in. There are now so many lawyers in Zimbabwe, and I'm sure purely by market forces, people will establish law firms in areas that never had such services. It's very important.
Because justice is expensive. You know, taking someone to court or taking people to court, lawyers are not cheap, and a lot of people are suffering, especially in the marginal communities. You can't sue, you get an injustice done, you can't access.
I agree with you. It's a problem that every country faces. If I was in America, I wouldn't be able to afford myself. You know, the lawyers are just expensive. So, but there are various schemes that are there which people don't know. One of them is a system called the contingent fee system.
Okay.
So with the contingent fee system, a lawyer will act for you for free. Then he's allowed to get 20-30% of
whatever
you are suing for. So if it's a damages claim, you are suing for defamation. Someone has called you a thief. The court gives you 30,000 US. Then the lawyer gets a third. It's allowed by law in Zimbabwe, the contingent fee system. But I believe that there are some services which the government should facilitate for free. So legal services pertaining to the drafting of wills, for instance, I think those should be free. Then people who face serious criminal charges like murder, I think the government should offer free legal services. But normal disputes, private disputes, mombe dzako dzadya munda mangu, aunotsvaga wakaloya unotaurira nawo. Divorces, auchada mukadzi because waona maidei, unotaurana nelawyer and so forth. But there are certain things which I think the government should help our citizens, particularly wills, estate planning.
Right.
And some of the processes as well, you might think they need lawyers. They don't need lawyers. You don't need a lawyer to sue for maintenance, for instance. So training and just educating, producing pamphlets. It used to happen in Kudara. It can also help people. But of course, there are cases where you definitely need lawyers.
Yeah,
those are unavoidable.
Yeah. So recently, I read that in Burkina Faso, the president, I think it's Traore, he's banned the colonial weave. You know that.
Yes.
What is your take on that? Because we still have those here, right? Our judges still wear those. Do they?
Yes, they do.
They do. Huh?
Yeah. Which they buy from England.
Yeah. What do you think about that? Does that sit right with you?
I think it's colonial legacy, so it should be done away with. But I also believe that the judiciary is a very important institution. So I think we've got young designers. Let them design
something African,
our own African garb for our judges so that we also give them the respect that they deserve. Yeah, so I'm against colonial garb, but I'm also for traditional garb that gives them respect, because they're dispensing a very important polity, which is justice.
Yeah. And also, when you address judges, do you go, my lord?
We call them my lord.
All that needs to be done away with. Right? It's not African.
Well, I think it's actually African. Because remember, Padari, Ishi.
I have
no problem with that.
You know,
I have no
but
problem
my
with
lord
that.
is very.
If you are saying the particular salutation, them. My lord,
let's respect them in the African way.
I have no problem with that. So if you are going to say Changamiri, Changamiri Malaba,
can I approach
Changamiri Chikausiku, Changamiri Drue, Changamiri Matonzi, Changamiri Bunu, Changamiri Kwenda.
Can I approach the
I have no problem with that. I have no problem. I think we should respect them.
Yeah.
I think we should respect them.
Yeah.
And that is in no way feudalism. Just like in church, I can't call my priest Warren Uriboy. Dibaba kakwantiri, dibaba mufundisi. I can't do that. I can't do that.
You have an illustrious legal and political career. What have been some of the challenges and highlights of your career?
I've been blessed that I've been able to use the law and to change the law. To change the law. I've been blessed, to do that, and I don't know how I did it, but I'm very privileged and very humbled by the fact that God gave me those blessings to do that. It's a privilege, so I'm very humbled. So my lesson, it's hard work. It's just hard work. It's just hard work. The library, just working hard work. You pay a price. You don't have a life, so your personal life gets smashed, in the process. So my practice is 50% free. The human rights cases I do, a lot of them, because I have to give back.
Nice. Okay.
To give back. So
I'm clapping.
Yeah. So I've been privileged to do important cases in this country that will be taught in law school 100 years after I'm gone.
Right.
So I'm very proud of that. In the legal profession, we've called what are called law reports.
Yeah.
So you hear a lawyer saying, "My lord, I'm referring to the case of Ara versus Blob, 1943, Volume 1, South Africa Law Reports." So when a case is put in a law report, it's immortality. It achieves immortality. Yeah. So
how many do you have?
I've got over 100, which is a privilege. Yeah, which is a privilege. I thank God for that.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So that's immortality. They're like a baby. Your child is there. So these.
How many other legal practitioners have these sort of numbers?
No, there are people that are doing well. Advocate Tabani Mpofu, Advocate Louis Oriri, Advocate DeBobon, Advocate Chris Anderson, the older generation.
Yeah.
My good friend Addington Chinake, my good friend Alec Mchadeama.
These are the big boys.
This is the Champions League
of
our profession.
Quick one, Mr. Biti. I killed someone today. Who's the best lawyer for me to call?
I can't comment on that as well.
Okay.
I can't comment on that as well. I'm not allowed to say. I'm not allowed to say.
Yeah.
So
but we do have good lawyers in Zimbabwe. Some of them I've just mentioned now. Louis Oriri, Tabani Mpofu, Addington Chinake, Matrenga Lloyd Mishi, Harrison Gomo, Professor Washman Ngube, to name a few.
So in terms of ethics and making money as a lawyer, like if I come to you and I did the crime, will you still represent me?
It's not. I go by what you tell me.
I'll tell you.
So if you tell me
I
that
did
you
this
didn't
crime.
do it, that is your problem, and
No,
I'll act.
I'll say I did the crime,
Eh.
but there are these loopholes. Can you help me?
That's our job. We're allowed to do that. It's ethical.
Oh,
What we can't do is to say you must lie.
oh, so if I come lying by myself, it's okay.
If you lie to me, that's fine because I get instructions.
Okay.
The word attorney means agent. Munyai, mutuma.
You are just telling my story nicely.
Yes.
In a legal way.
And I act on instructions.
Okay.
But if there are loopholes, that's why I went to law school.
Good
If
to
there are
know.
loopholes, even if I know you killed, but if there are loopholes that can get you free, there's nothing unethical about that. What's unethical is for me to say, don't tell the court you killed when you killed.
But also you're not going to tell me to say I killed because then you can't represent me.
It's your case, it's not my case.
But you'll advise me not to say.
And if you tell me that you killed, then I have to work on the basis that you killed. I now try to get you off the hook through technicalities, where there are always technicalities. And good lawyers thrive on technicalities. Or I try to mitigate. So either way, I will help you. But what I'm not allowed to do is to twist the facts or to tell you to go and manufacture evidence or to tell you that this judge takes bribes, go and pay him. Because it's happening.
Okay.
If the glove don't
So
fit,
so
you must
yeah.
quit.
So who were some of your mentors in politics and in leadership, and also like what message can you impart to aspiring leaders and politicians?
There is Goromonzi was an excellent starting point. In fact, I would start with primary school.
Right.
Yeah, my grade 5 teacher, Mr. Nelson Kapisa,
Where did you do primary school?
Gombo Primary School in Zwaresekwe.
Okay.
Yeah. So I used to read. I started reading when I was grade 3. I would read a novel a day.
Grade 3.
Grade 3. The first novel I ever read was called Rekas Bay.
Nash, when was when
I
did
was
you
in
read
grade
your first
3, yeah.
novel? Grade
But
3.
By the time I was in grade 5, I was reading Chinua Achebe, A Man of the People, Obi Egbuna,
Things Fall
Ember
Apart,
of the
see, what
Sea, Aikwe Ama, The Beautiful Ones Are Not Yet Born, by grade 5.
So did you have a social
By
life?
grade 5,
you
I
have
was
friends?
doing that.
Do you have a social life? You didn't have a social life then.
Yeah, I had a social life. But part of the problem why I've had some challenges in life is because I was so much of a bookworm.
Yeah, clearly.
So I didn't understand life. So when you are then exposed to life, you don't have certain skills. And I think this is the advantage of Group A schools. Group A schools
The balance.
Yeah, you went to Goromonzi. So your value system is you must win that prize, Paparis Day.
I went to St. John's College afterwards.
Yeah.
Just to
you are
clean
not,
up.
You are not allowed kunyenga mskana. Fit I took katuna. With that simi on that Sunday after Pachidombo cheche. I took katuna vanu man. Vanenge vari pa simi. You understand? You understand?
Yeah.
So when your first girlfriend is when you are 24, it's not good.
Yeah.
Because you don't have social skills. Yeah.
Mr. B, are you saying private schools are better than government?
No, only in that aspect of being a complete
Because
person.
it's compulsory to do sport, it's compulsory to
You
do
understand?
this.
That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
But also, if you realize that private schools are producing the worst kids now.
No, I'm not commenting or judging private schools.
Yeah, he's just talking
I'm
about
just-
that element.
I'm just talking about that element of being a rounded individual.
Yeah, when it's time,
At
certain
Goromonzi,
time
we were
you have to go
just
to sports.
bookworms. I used to leave the library or the prep at 1 a.m. as a Form 1 kid, going to Soko Hostel.
Saka Mamrim East area. You're in East.
Yeah.
It's always been like that, right? East
Yeah.
is for the bookworms.
Yes.
And then north is for the more
Yeah.
balanced.
So I don't want my kids to be like that.
This is a national question.
Yeah.
Anzi nemkhulu vakatanga ne 24 first
Aiwa,
girlfriend.
Shama Rusabvunze.
What answer? Because Nash was going to ask you. It was answered.
I want to answer.
It was answered already. Okay.
But it's true. My first girlfriend was at university. That's not good enough.
Yeah, yeah. Child because Lord's first girlfriend was when he was 13.
Yeah.
Guys, they had no time. They had
That's
no
not good
time.
enough.
And finally, Mkoma, during your spare time, what do you do? We're talking so much about farms and so on. Are you also a beneficiary of this farm land resettlement scheme?
No, I don't have a farm. But what I did was that what I did was, and this is a true story. So when I was around 2011, 2012.
Yeah.
So in fact, let me tell the story completely. In 2008, during the runoff election, the June runoff election, in my rural home, my relatives had houses burnt
Right.
because of politics, because of me.
Okay.
So from 2009, I helped rebuild at our rural home. My father's house was down.
It was better.
No. My father
that
just stopped going there.
Okay.
Yeah, so Papa Snachin. So I started feeling very guilty. My father died on the 31st of March 2000. So the guilt actually extended to me dreaming of my father, and my father said, but Uruguite, go and build that homestead. So in 2011, 12, I started rebuilding
Right.
my father's rural home. Then I said, but people do projects, and let me show the local community that you can actually do something.
Right.
So I thought of chickens, I thought of what, but we settled, me and my sister, we settled on pigs.
Right.
So I'm a pig farmer with a big sow head by our standards, 200 sows,
200 sows. Sows are the
the mothers.
okay.
So to give you an idea of the breadth of this thing, a pig gives birth an average of roughly 3 times a year.
Okay.
It gives 10 a liter. I will have 10. So if you start off with the 10 pigs, it means by the end of the year you will have 10 times 10, which is 100,
Right.
times 3.
Times 3.
Yeah. So that's how. So if you've got 200, you've got 200 times 10 times 3.
So
It's
at the
like
end of the
6,000.
year- Wow. So
Yeah.
you should have been a beneficiary of the land reform and got.
I
bigger
wasn't.
space.
I wasn't. But where I am right now, it's becoming unsustainable for me to continue farming in the rural area. Because my pigs are too many, they require water. Pigs are about water.
Right.
And then I've got mombes, I've got cattle, I've got sheep, I've got goats, I've got dairy cattle.
All at the homestead.
It's not possible anymore. It's not possible anymore.
So should we speak to the Minister of Land? So
No,
give
but
you
I'm just saying that environmentally, I can't do what I'm doing in a village.
Right.
But I'm very proud that I'm doing it because it's so therapeutic. It's the opposite of my life. It softens you. Dealing with Zanu PF, Mr. Trababaras, dealing with the heads of arguments, judges, and then suddenly,
Do you have some pictures so we can put on the screen? Do you have some pictures of you in the pigsty?
in my phone, yes. So it's the opposite. It's so therapeutic. It's catharsis, and I wish I had done it earlier.
So wouldn't you want to do it on a larger scale since it's something that
I
you
want
enjoy?
to. I want to.
So if a farm were offered to you, you would refuse it, or what would the story be?
Look, if
Because
a
people
land-
are benefiting.
If a land was available for purchase, definitely.
No, for like the government has given people, and it's about to give them title deed.
As long as it's not acquired through corruption, I have no problem. What I don't want is corruption. But land belongs to Zimbabweans, and I'm in Zimbabwe.
Okay. I'm told the Minister of Lands also watches our show, so I think very soon we might get an offer letter. What do you think?
The
Nash?
late minister a parents Shiri actually sent people at my rural home, and he confronted me and said, "Tendai, you are doing wonderful things." And so unfortunately he died. But farming is just amazing. Farming is just amazing. And because I'm doing it, I'm now realizing why our liberation war took 25 years and why some people didn't want to get off the land.
Yeah. It's all making sense to you now.
It's now making sense to me because I guess farming is very difficult, by the way. But there's something you get that no money can ever compensate you. Therapeutic.
And you know, there's a number of people who are beneficiaries of this, and they are not even farming on the land.
I would say 60% of them.
You know, and then you have committed farmers like yourself who are using very little space.
Yeah,
and doing
but
wonderful.
but it's. I wish you could visit.
Yeah.
Shocked that this is happening in a rural home.
How far is it?
It's only 81 k's from Harare.
Yeah, we can come.
Yeah,
We can
yeah. It's
take a drive.
it's just amazing.
Yeah,
But I've poured thousands of dollars.
yeah.
Thousands of dollars.
Yeah, but you must get support from the government, even though you have your reservations, because people are benefiting.
Yeah, so that keeps me. That keeps me. I travel a lot.
Yeah.
I love traveling,
Is this local travel or
both locally and internationally.
Right.
Both locally and internationally. I love Nyanga. I love the Eastern Highlands.
Yeah.
I know people who live in the Victoria Falls who say I'm crazy,
Yeah.
but I consider the best part of the country. So I love Nyanga. I love the Vumba.
Yeah.
And I've got a little place up there. It's beautiful.
In Vumba.
In Nyanga. Yeah, I call it my own little piece of heaven.
Okay, it's accessible. We can. Me and my team, we can go there for a retreat.
You want a holiday?
Yeah.
Only on condition that you're taking your wives.
Okay, no problem. No problem.
Nash, I want you to say yes.
Definitely.
I should have a slay queen.
And your wife, we haven't spoken about your wife. How is your wife? You guys are happily married for how long?
For a long time.
My long time or your long time?
Happily married.
But what's long time? Long starts from 20 years. Going up. How old?
Slightly below that.
Oh, you are almost there.
Yeah, but look, I've spent my life fighting for women's cases, women's justice, as you know.
Yeah.
And I've done, you remember the child marriage case?
Oh, yes.
The case that says thing. I think women are undervalued in Zimbabwe, and most importantly, wives are undervalued.
Yeah.
Because we live in a patriarchal society. You can't put value to having food laid out on your table, having a shirt laid out on the table.
After a stressful
So
day.
I think, I know there's Mother's Day. I think there must be Wives' Day.
I think the wives
I
would
think
really
there
love
must be
that.
Wives' Day.
They would really love that. And your kids, how old are your kids now?
The last born is Tabo, who is who just turned 18. He started university.
Yeah.
And then I've got a daughter who is at, I've got daughters that are at university, 2 of them.
Right.
My daughters are special because they're vulnerable. And my biggest fear is what makes me, but I have no control.
Yeah.
But the idea that some John Chibadura somewhere will ravish my daughter, that drives me crazy.
Yeah, and Nash has a daughter
Yeah.
also.
Yeah, so
And I have a daughter as well.
but I mean they're human beings, so I can't control that.
Yeah.
But that it drives me crazy.
The thought.
Just the thought, yeah, it drives me crazy. It drives me crazy, but that's the reality.
Yeah.
It's unavoidable. I guess it's the revenge of history. Because I'm a man. Yeah. But family is very important to me.
Yeah.
I'm very close to my siblings. And each year we spend Christmas together.
Are they all around? Or,
No.
or they're overseas?
All of them. I'm
many?
the only one in Zimbabwe. 6. I'm the firstborn.
You're the firstborn. The others are boys and girls.
I only have one sister, Nancy.
Oh, no. Okay.
So she's in the UK. Then I've got 2 brothers in Australia. The brother who comes after me, Stanford, is in the UK.
Right.
Then Stephen, the third born, is in South Africa. Jeremiah, Australia, South Africa. Then the last born, Fortune, is in Australia. So Christmas 2023, we're all here. So it was great. We had Christmas in Harare. Then we went to my place in Nyanga.
Yeah.
The New Year, we were in the raw home, playing music and blasting music. I'm a DJ, by the way. DJ M.
DJ
M for love, yeah.
Yeah.
So we're
DJ M for love.
Yeah, DJ
And
M for love. Don't ask what the M stands for.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
So plus the DJ career started in Goromons.
At Goromons High School.
Yeah.
I was the chairman of the entertainment committee.
It was prestigious to be in that committee, you know.
So also, I used to buy reggae albums. And I had more reggae albums than the school.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mafai
now, yeah. And remember, we had those strobe speakers.
Yes.
That
yes.
we used to, when there was dance on
Yeah,
Saturday.
yeah, the school ones.
So I used to play the last hour.
Prime time.
The prime time when naughty kids with girlfriends and the beast with double backs.
Yeah.
That's what I used to. So I cherished that time. So I grew up on a staple diet of reggae. Bob
And
Marley.
who are your favorite reggae artists? Gregor Isaacs
At
is
the
there?
time was
Who was there?
Denny Brown. Hardcore reggae.
Yeah.
Hardcore reggae.
Dub.
Hardcore reggae. King Tubby. Scientist. Hardcore reggae.
This guy is a reggae DJ.
Yeah.
Papa Nodza is a reggae DJ.
Yeah, hardcore reggae. It's a pity that Barry Salmond,
Even to this day,
Ike Mouse,
Barry Salmond is a
Ike Mouse. Later on, the likes of Yellowman came on the scene. I've been to Jamaica.
Right.
So Jamaica is special for me. It's. I think people shouldn't be allowed to die before you've been to a Caribbean island.
Oh, it's
That's
very
all I
important.
can say. Oh my God! But they don't call them paradise islands for nothing. So I've been in reggae shows in Jamaica.
Yeah.
Nothing can beat that. Nothing can beat that. And Bob Marley is like a god. Bob Marley is everywhere in Jamaica. So that's what I used to play at Goromons.
So
That's
Vibes Cartel and all this type of music, are you into that also? Vibes Cartel was recently released from. Did you ever connect to dancehall? Or you've always been an old
I
school?
love dancehall. And there are some reggae anthems, raga anthems, which
Medashi Road.
Those are timeless.
Yeah.
Those are timeless. Sean Paul, those are timeless classics.
That one, is it your time? When love is far away, who sang that lot? Every day seems
Sugar Minot, I also used to like Sugar Minot. But Dennis Emmanuel Brown, I used to love Dennis Emmanuel Brown. Yeah, no, Dennis Emmanuel Brown. And many people don't know that Dennis Emmanuel Brown died on the day that Joshua Ngomo died, which was the 1st of July, 1999. So I was actually in the States when the two of them died. So there was a live band from Jamaica that was playing. So it converted that into a Dennis Brown memorial. And it's one of the best days that I've ever. It was brilliant. Songs like Wolves and Shepherds, and so forth, Money in My Pocket. You know the song called Money in My Pocket? Money in my pocket, but I can't get no love.
That's another. What's his name? Hopewell. Hopewell Shimono is deep in
Yeah, but now, guess what?
Yeah.
I play hip hop. I play Kanye West. I play Travis Scott. I play Kendrick. I play Jay-Z. That's my music.
B.I.G.
But those are.
B.I.G. is a legend, Elder. What does it?
I'm West Coast. Tupac Shakur.
Oh.
He's East Coast. Yeah, I'm part of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we don't like P. Diddy. And everything he does.
Okay. Everything he does. We don't. Yeah. Mukoma, we had so much fun. Thank you for making time. Having one of the busiest lawyers come to the podcast and chill with us is something that we always cherish. We see the work that you're doing in politics, in the legal field and so on, and we're very proud of what you've managed to achieve. And we hope you continue to do more.
Thank you.
Because you're still young.
Thank you. Zikomo.
Yeah.
Anything
else, Nash? All right. Guys, thank you for watching the Denny J Show. Be sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. And see you on the next one. I'm booing myself.
The Denny J Show.
zvanga zviri downta up tauraitigzwe nyaya dzacho dzese narrative ndaichidwe kana muchida kutipisa deep ndaipidwe make it spill a bean